Okay. Hello, and welcome to Between One Fake Plant with Lisa and DPT. And today, I'm going to be interviewing our very own Dr. Jessie. We're so excited to have you here.
Welcome. Thanks, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here.
You're so welcome. So, I wanted to just start by asking if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Things like that.
Sure. Well, I grew up out in Wisconsin, and then I moved here in 2016 from New Hampshire. I was living out east for a while. I was a surgical tech before I went to PT school, so I worked for 6 years, and then decided to go to PT school and came out to the desert and fell in love with Arizona and Phoenix, and I've been here ever since. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I love it out here.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, it's real different than the Midwest or the East Coast, I'll tell you that much.
I can imagine, especially in this, being in the weather and in a new atmosphere, all of that.
And I hate being cold, so I don't know why I spent 28 years in cold weather, but I love it here. I will take warm weather any day of the year. It's awesome.
That is so great.
Yeah.
I love that. So you already said a little bit about this. You were a surgical tech before. So I was going to ask you, what did you do before you became a PT? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I graduated school in 2009 for my undergrad at University of Wisconsin, and I thought I wanted to do something in the medical field, but I didn't know what. I graduated in 2009, so there weren't a lot of jobs around with a psychology degree, so I decided to become a surgical tech. I originally thought I wanted to go to PA school probably, and then after working in surgery for several years, I realized that we weren't really fixing any problems. We weren't really fixing anything. We were just treating a lot of symptoms. So we'd see people come in pain, and they'd have one back surgery and then another back surgery, and their symptoms wouldn't change. So we just saw things that I realized we weren't really getting to people soon enough. And so by the time people got to surgery, they already had not really been given any other options. And so no one along the way had really ever said, hey, why don't you try physical therapy? Why don't you try, diet and exercise? Why don't you try all these things? And I realized that the system within surgery and a lot of medicine is everyone kind of stays in their lane, and no one really tells anyone or empowers patients to try and help themselves. And so I started reading into different professions, and I had some friends that had gone to PTs in the past. I was a competitive cyclist, so I had plenty of friends that had been hurt in the past. So I started shadowing some PTs in New Hampshire and just fell in love with it. And so applied to school and moved out to the desert, and the rest is history.
So that's a little bit of how you actually became a PT and got into this world.
Yep, you got it.
And that's your main reasoning for really wanting to become a PT? Is it was more because you wanted that ability to fix people before the surgery?
Yeah, I felt like it's so important for people to be an active participant in their health. And so often we assume these passive roles when we just go through the healthcare system. So, you go to the doctor and you're hurt and they give you some pain meds, or they tell you go to this new specialist, and you go to this new specialist and they say, okay, I'll give you a shot. And then the shot doesn't work and they say, I'll send you to a surgeon. And so nowhere along the way do we say, hey, here are a couple things that you can do. Let's give you a chance to try and fix it, because it's your body and it's your movement patterns that we need to look at. It's not, me cutting you open. It's not me giving you a pain pill just for the symptoms. It's us being able to try and figure out how to get you to move better and how to keep you moving better.
Right.
Because a lot of times people, when they go for surgery, they assume it's going to help their pain. It's going to fix their pain. They're going to no longer be in pain. But the thing they forget is that surgery is still a trauma to your body. They're still causing tissue damage. So now not only do you have pain that oftentimes already has inflammation and other issues with it, but now you also have to heal from surgery itself. So oftentimes the process is not as comprehensive, or it doesn't address the pain as much as oftentimes people think it will. And so then we have this population of people that are still in pain, have tried surgery, have tried painkillers, and haven't gotten any better. And that's because nowhere along the way did anyone give them a chance to try and help themselves get better.
Yeah. I can tell you're very passionate about it.
Oh man, I love PT. Well, and that's one of the nice things I think about not going right to grad school after undergrad is it took me a while to kind of get here, and it just I think it was a really great almost 7 years of really figuring out what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to do to help people. And I just love PT. I love everything about it. Dr. Tom and I can go on forever about it, but it's just a great profession. I'm just so excited that I get to hang out every day and do it and get paid for it. It's great.
Tell me a little bit about what you love about it. What are some of your favorite things that you enjoy about physical therapy?
How much time you got? So I think one of my favorite things, especially here, is actually taking the time to talk to patients about what's going on, because no one has sat down and said, hey, I know you're in pain. Here are the reasons why. Here are the things I see, the way you're moving, the things that might be contributing to it. And then with PT, the great thing is too, within the hour you have with these people is you can make a change. So we've been trained to see what the movement deficits are, what the problems are, where the pain might be coming from. And then being able to teach people why that is and what they can do to help themselves and to do that is just like seeing that light bulb come on is just awesome. And then seeing people also through their progression of care and having people come back to us from week 1 to week 2 and being like, hey, you know what? I couldn't get down on the floor and play with my kids for a long time and now I can. Or like even just, I had better results than I've had in the last 3 years when I tried X, Y, and Z. People that just come in and say, hey, I got to walk for 15 minutes. I haven't been able to do that in years. Like stuff like that is just so awesome to see, because they come and see us for an hour and then they go out and spend the rest of their X hours in a week doing all the other things that they want to do, as well as applying themselves to the stuff we give them. And then they're able to actually improve their life and do the things they want to do. Like I can't imagine anything better than that.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite part.
Knowing that you were a part of their journey and a part of their life, and being able to help them get back to doing the things that they genuinely love to do, it's priceless.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, I was a competitive cyclist for years, so I've just always been a huge proponent of movement in general. We like to say movement is medicine, and I just, it's for a lot of people, it's how they cope with things. It's how they relax and release stress. It's just how they oftentimes have time to themselves when they're doing whatever it is that they love to do. And so just being able to meet people there and get them back to whatever it is that they love to do too is just, it's awesome. It's such a great feeling. It's such a great thing to see for other people.
Yeah. Definitely. So tell me a little bit more about your favorite people to treat. What are the types of patients that you enjoy treating?
Coming from a competitive sports background, when I first got to PT school, I was like, I want to treat only athletes, and that's it. And I definitely still love my athletes. I love treating cyclists. I was a bike fitter before I went to PT school as well. So I love incorporating that into my treatment and my practice as well. So I love treating cyclists because I can relate to a lot of the injuries. I know what's going on. I have a very good understanding of how we can increase performance and power, as well as improve or treat whatever pain might be going on too.
Right.
But then I really love treating everyone throughout the gamut, because like I said before, being able to educate patients is huge too. And so you get a lot of people who have moved certain ways for years and years and years and have never really had the chance to be educated on why that might be. And so treating people that just every day maybe aren't someone that wants to get out and be able to ride 50 miles or doesn't want to run a marathon, but wants to be able to walk around the block, and to get them to do that is just an awesome feeling. So I love being able to treat anyone that really just wants to get back to living their life without pain. So I'm a huge fan of that. I also like treating people that have a lot of balance issues too. Balance is a really fun way to train. A lot of people, as they get older, they lose some of that balance and that vestibular ability, and so doing a lot of balance training and making sure people can be safe at home is another thing I really like to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What is it about treating the balance aspects? How do you dive into something like that? Yeah,
so the way we basically figure out our balance in the world is 3 things. We have our feet on the ground, we have our inner ear, and then we have our sight. And so those are 3 things that oftentimes can be affected. Oftentimes people will have neuropathy, so they'll lose some feeling in their feet. Oftentimes people have vision issues, inner ear things, Meniere's disease, any sort of gamut of inner ear issues, as well as a lot of times people with cervical pain. So neck pain can also contribute to dizziness and can contribute to balance issues. Because if we can't actually look around and see what our world is around us, oftentimes what happens is our brain no longer is able to see that as well, and our brain starts to limit what it can attend to and pay attention to, and so that can oftentimes contribute to dizziness and balance issues as well. So being able to retrain those systems, it's a really fun way. I mean, we have people balancing all sorts of things. We have them doing stuff with their eyes closed on one leg, all these sorts of things, because single leg activities are really important for people that want to walk, because walking is a single leg activity. So getting people to try and really challenge themselves so that they're safe at home, they're safe to do whatever they need to do. It's just a really fun thing to dive into, and I think a lot of people don't realize how important it can be to be able to actually train a skill like balance.
Right. Yeah, and mean, it's something that we don't even necessarily think about.
Yeah, right?
So who would even know sometimes that balance is an issue that they have?
Yeah.
Until
you got it.
You're able to really kind of check into it and see how it all is functioning.
And that's one of the things we do with our patients a lot, actually, is I have my patients, anyone that comes in here, I'll have them stand on one leg, because that can actually tell me a lot of stuff musculoskeletally. And a lot of times, as soon as they do that, their first thing out of their mouth is, oh, my balance isn't very good. So, because if you don't challenge it, you don't realize. And so a lot of times people just like anything else, use it or lose it. And we don't really need to use the ability to be able to balance ourselves, because we all live in a single plane world. We walk back and forth. We don't really move around a lot. We stop playing after we're kids, and so we no longer require the ability to balance and to be able to stabilize ourselves in challenging situations.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so to dive in a little bit more about you. Okay. So tell me, it's not scary, I promise.
Buckle up.
Tell me a little bit about your hobbies and what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, so I'm a big cyclist. So I used to race in what's called cyclocross. It's a big sport out in New England. It's basically invented by the Belgians as to how to stay in shape in the off season. So it's a lot of riding and racing through snow and dirt and mud and running, picking up your bike and running up hills and over obstacles. And anyways, it's a great way to ride a bike, but there's not a lot of that out here in the desert. So I do a ton of mountain biking out here. Okay. Phoenix is awesome because you can ride a bunch of different places. Prescott is great. My boyfriend just recently moved from Prescott, so I used to go up there a lot. Sedona's close, so those places are great. I got into hiking and camping a lot when I moved here too. Okay. All the other places I lived were so cold I had no interest. And so when I finally moved here, I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually sleep outside and not be freezing. Right. This is awesome. So
much more opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. When I moved here, I was like, this is like cheating. Like, I had no idea you can live like this. So sunshine every day. Yeah, I'll take that. So. Yeah, so just getting outside in general, I just absolutely love it. I'm a big reader. I like to read pretty much anything. So that's another thing I do on my off time. I started learning how to play banjo after I graduated PT school. I don't know, I've always loved the banjo, and I kept saying that was my thing. I was like, once I graduate PT school, I'm going to learn how to play. So for my birthday last year, my boyfriend got me a banjo. And so I was like, well, challenge accepted. So I'm still pretty bad at it, but it's really fun to learn. And let me tell you, it is hard to learn an instrument when you're in your 30s. So
yes, it is.
It got a lot harder than when I was a kid.
It's challenging.
It got really hard. Yeah, well, you play a bunch of stuff, so so.
It's easier to pick up when you're like
it
7.
Certainly seems so,
8, 9, 10.
But especially after using my hands all day here too, like going home and trying to play. Like, oof, man, my hands are tired. So, but yeah, it's super fun. So like anything outdoors I'm into. I love reading. I love music. I love going to live concerts too. Phoenix is a pretty great place for that because a lot of cool bands come through here. So yeah, those are the big things I really like to do.
Nice. So tell me about cycling a little bit more too. How did you first get into cycling? How did that first become a passion of yours?
How did I? It was actually my last year in high school, and the unfortunately boring story is that I was dating a guy who was a cyclist, and so he was doing it. I was like, that looks like fun. So I started riding too, and then I kind of just never looked back. I rode in college. We just had a club team, but some of my best friends from college actually are from that team still, the people I keep in touch with most closely. And so, yeah, that's, I just really kind of never stopped after that, actually. I got into racing through college, and then rode for a while, and then picked up racing again after a couple of years. And all the other places I lived that are not Phoenix were all very bike friendly as far as just out east, everything's close to each other. So I was able to ride my bike to all my jobs. I didn't have to drive my car ever.
That's nice.
So yeah, so that was the great part. It was a great way to start my day, end my day. Like I love being on two wheels. So
there's kind of a meditation behind it a little bit.
100%. Yeah, it's it's just like every day you get to ride your bike to work is a good day. So and it was just. It's a great thing to do. So, and I've done that here too in different places we've lived. Phoenix is just a little tough because it's such a huge, massive city. Yes. So the city I moved from in New Hampshire, where I moved from, was 20,000 people. So a little bit of culture shock coming here.
Definitely smaller.
A little smaller, yep. Yes. And I could literally ride to the next town in like 8 minutes. So.
Yes.
So yeah, different, but yeah, just being able to get out and ride, you can see a lot of stuff that way. You can cover a lot of distance. So yeah, it's just one of my main passions, and I just love it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So as far as places that you've lived, I know you've lived in many different places.
A couple, yeah.
Yeah, over the time frame.
Yeah.
So how many different places have you lived in?
So let's think. So it's not like a ton, but I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is about 20 minutes south of Green Bay. Go Packers. And so then I went to school at Madison, which is a couple hours south of that. From there I moved to Maine, where I lived all around the greater Portland, Maine area. So I lived in 3 separate towns all through there. And then from there I moved to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is about an hour north of Boston. So and then from there I moved here to grad school, and I've lived in pretty much every city surrounding the greater Phoenix area, as well as Salt Lake City for a little bit for one of my rotations.
Wow. So
I've been a bit of a nomad for a while. So when I moved here, I literally just packed up my Prius and moved with what I had in there. So
that's great.
Yeah, so I'm pretty mobile. So I finally put down roots and bought a house earlier this year. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Exciting.
It's really exciting. Except when I moved in, I realized I had no furniture whatsoever. So I owned a bed and a couch, and that was it. So now we're trying to fill it. I need like a kitchen table and all sorts of stuff. So, but yeah, it's great.
A new journey for you.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it turns out my decorating skills aren't great either, but that's okay. We'll work on it.
It's all right. You're a great PT.
Yeah, right. I only have so many skills. Yeah. I will tell you, the things that are not in my repertoire are designing and cooking. So those things I am not good at.
You have to learn, maybe.
Yeah, my boyfriend's a pretty good cook, so I'm gonna leave it up to him. So
perfect.
Yeah, I think I'll clean dishes all day long.
There
so,
you go.
Yeah, I think it's a good partnership that way.
Yes.
So.
All right. So tell me something unique about yourself.
Well, to borrow a famous line from Friends, I'll tell you something that's not unique. Twins. So I'm an identical twin. I have a sister that lives in D.C. Despite having the same genes, we are totally different people. So she works in politics out in D.C. And so she was able to come here for my graduation in 2019, and that was the first time she'd been out to Arizona. So that was pretty fun. Yeah. So the funny thing is, too, she actually married a guy that grew up 10 minutes from where my boyfriend lives. So, and they actually have mutual friends. So,
interesting.
Even though, she's across the country, they met across the country. He and I met actually up in Flagstaff. But somehow, the both of us ended up with guys that know the same people. So.
Do you think that's like some sort of twin?
I don't know if it's like some sort of twin
something?
voodoo or what. I don't know. But yeah, we have Jeff, my boyfriend, showed me pictures the other day of him and my sister's husband's best friend in pictures together.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they lived overseas together for when their parents worked for Boeing for a while. So.
Oh my gosh.
So small weird universe.
Yes,
yeah,
there is. So you still have, even though you say that you're complete opposites, you somehow have some sort of like
there's that, and
twin something.
Yeah, there's something going on in the universe. Right. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's we both ended up with Arizonan boys.
Yes. Well, that is excellent.
Yeah, right. I know, pretty good, right?
Yeah, that is pretty good. So at least when you're visiting, it's somehow.
Yeah, they're all from good stock. So
exactly. So I was gonna ask you to tell like one maybe like story about being a twin. Oh. You'd mentioned something to me before. Yeah,
so this is probably a good, fairly classic twin story. Is, people always ask, like, did we switch places a lot? And we really didn't very much, except my sister. My sister's a phenomenal musician, actually, and so she was in choir. I was not. And so, but she had like a doctor's appointment one day, so I decided to check out her choir class for her and go as her. And so she's like, yeah, go, it'll be fun. And so I got there, and she neglected to tell me she was in a quartet. So, and they were practicing for their rehearsal or for their concert in our actual auditorium. So, like, they called her name up to the stage to sing with these other 3 people. And so I trotted myself up there, and the girl standing next to me looks over, she goes, "You're not Maddie." And so it turns out they had it was a clapping thing too, like they had hand motions they had to do. There was choreography involved. She didn't tell me any of this. And so I managed to like somehow bluff my way through it, but that was the first and last time I ever went to choir for her. So
and the first and last time you ever switched with her.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, none of that. That was not fun for me. No.
So. It wasn't like a date or something like that. Like, you
right?
Just kinda, like, show up for her.
Yeah, no, I had zero fun. Yeah. So. So yeah, lesson learned.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that works out very well for you then.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned too that you're a reader.
I'm a huge reader.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of your favorite books.
Oh man, let's see. One of my favorite books ever, actually, speaking of twins, is called Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. It was pretty popular probably about 10 years ago now, I guess. And it's a fictional story about these twin boys born in India to a nun, and so there's some intrigue involved there. Yeah, and it basically follows them throughout their life, and one of them becomes a doctor, and it's just such an interesting dynamic. And as I always say, like a really good coming of age story, but man, it's a fantastic read, and he's a great writer. So I tend to go more towards like sci-fi and fantasy stuff. So I really love it's a big show on Showtime now, but the Outlander series, the actual books by Diana Gabaldon. Oh, so good. They're so good. Yeah. They're all like 1,000 pages long. But other than that, they're awesome.
So they take a while.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But...
So yeah, and especially because she came out with a new one after I like read the series years and years ago, and so she came out with a new one in the last 3 years. I'm like, I can't go back and reread everything.
Oh no, it would take way too long.
I can't do that.
Nope. Nobody has that much time on their hands
I ain't got that kind of time. So yeah, but that's a great series too. I really love that. And then there's also actually now made into a TV show on Amazon. It's called The Expanse series. It's a sci-fi series that is also fantastic. Yeah, so that's a really good one too. Okay. So for anyone looking for any sort of ideas, recommendations, you can always ask. I actually talk about books a lot with a lot of my patients, actually, because other readers, we're always like swapping titles and stuff.
So if you're a reader, this is the place to
hit
go.
Me up, yeah.
We will help you in all aspects of your life, not just your body, but also your mind.
I don't do math though, so don't ask me about math. So
that's okay. That's what the internet is for.
Exactly. True.
Well, this has been really fun.
Thanks, Lisa.
I've enjoyed interviewing you.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yes.
It's been really fun.
Until next time, this was Between Our Fake Plant with Lisa and Dr. Jessie. Have a great day.